Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Steel Division 2 deck deep dive. And today we look into a deck that was the top dog 2 years ago, has fallen off a bit since then, but now should have a return because it got buffed a lot over the last couple of patches, and especially the last one helped it out. And it was pretty okay beforehand already, so I'm optimistic that we will see this a lot in League Season 8 if it doesn't get banned. That's the big question. It might even be too good to make a play because it might just get banned, at least on the maps where it is good at. So, yeah, we are here at first Piechoty, der Deutsche Korzutski, and yeah, I most likely slaughtered that name, so I'm sorry to all the Polish people out there. Let me know down below if that was somewhat close or how far I was off. And let's start with the Recon tab and yeah, have a look at what you get here. As the Recon tab already is pretty versatile and a solid one. You start with BA-10s and they are the first unit in here that profits quite big from the DT buff. DT buff increased the rate of fire of the TMG from 295 to 415, so by a third, or even more than a third. So the MG now is pretty powerful, and you have two of them. So this one profits a lot, and for 25 points can now give solid infantry support, and it was already a pretty good light armor killer beforehand. Has a solid veterancy curve as well, 6, 4, 2. I feel like you want to stay with the 4. And the other options you get are some BMWs, or no, some motorbikes, sadly without radio, so not really helpful there. 2-man leader, but without any super fancy transports. You can use some half-track, you can use some B864s if you want, but they're not really that worthwhile at the moment for 10 points. Then you get an 8-man squadron with SVTs and a Panzerfaust. And then you get the Schwert Conny in 11-man squadron for 25 points with an MG42. So these are better than Grenadiers. Yes, they cost you 5 points more, but they have 2 more hit points than Grenadiers. They have an SMG more, and they have Recon. So you pay 5 points extra for the Recon and 2 more men. And I would say that's pretty worthwhile. And this is one of the infantry squadrons that actually can be doing well in combat. And with an MG42, and at the same time also give you good recon and survive a bit of hits. So, really good unit. And you get 2 cards of them if you want to use them. And then you get an SU-57, which was really good with 2000 meter range back in the day, as it has good rate of fire, has solid accuracy. At the moment, and solid penetration as well with the M1 gun. At the moment, I feel like it's a bit pricey because it didn't got any price reductions when all the other light armor things got the price reduction. So I'm not the biggest fan of the SU-57 at the moment anymore. I'd rather take the T-34-76 Recon version for 55 points to have a Recon tank in my tank columns that helps out spotting. And then you also get a universal carrier with Dushka, which can also be worthwhile, though I feel like for 15 points I would always take them. For 20 points I'm not super happy with them. So yeah, those are the options. A lot of good ones, but I feel like these 3 fit the best in a Maverick deck. Get them early on and help me seeing stuff and giving me some more push power for a pretty good push deck. So let's move on to the infantry tab, where we have a lot of good options and a couple of units that got buffed lately as well. And the first one is the original Kani, which went to 30 points from 35 points on the last patch. Yes, they lost the chance, the ability to be taken with veterancy, but the 5 points cheaper help out a lot. It's a 30-point 20-man unit with 3 LMGs and 3 SMGs and some light anti-tank options. Yes, they're hardened, so you have to be careful. You want to have something else that takes the stress damage for them, because otherwise they often just run mindlessly around, so they're not super easy to use. The disheartened, especially for a big squad like this, is a bit of a disadvantage, but you still get a lot of firepower if they shoot for 30 points. So they're pretty worthwhile. And when we are already at firepower, you have some other good squadrons with a lot of firepower as well. The Strelky LKM is one of them. They are one of the few Strelkys, here they're Strelsies, that didn't lose their SVTs. They don't have an SMG, but they have a lot of firepower at everything above 100 to up to 500 meters, with 2 DPs and 9 SVTs. PTRD also helping out, dealing with light armor for 25 points. Really good firepower squadron, one of the best mid-range firepower squadrons in the game. And then for the CQC, you also get a really good unit in form of the Saperji Rocks, which went from 35 to 30 points. And you have a flamethrower, you have SVTs, you have PPSHs, and you have 2 DPs as well. So you have good mid-range, you have good medium, you have decent long range, and you have good CQC with the flamethrower and 4 PPSHs. So amazing CQC squad here in B phase as well. And then you also get good leaders. You get a 4 availability leader for 20 points with the DCA Saperji. You get 4 availability in B leader with 10 hit points and a TNT. So you have some more TNT units in your deck if you want them. And the other leader options are also decent, like the 4-8 availability leader with smoke here for 25 points, also good. Or the 30-point sniper one, though this one I feel like is a bit overpriced and it doesn't have an amazing anti-tank weapon like other 30-point sniper leaders do. But it's still a sniper leader if you want some sniper rifles in this deck. This one is also an option. So yeah, a lot of good options. I go with these two as 8 leaders feel like mostly enough for Maverick. But if you want more, you can go for this one as well, and then you can get 12 leaders. And then in the tank tab, you have good T-34s as well. First of all, T-34s here come with 2 DTs, so you get more firepower with the MG. You also get the T-34E, which has 90 frontal armor, but is cheaper than the 1942 model T-34. Because it's a bit slower, yes, but the cheaper points, I would say, are worthwhile. You have less KMH, 6 less KMH than a normal T-34 43, but you get 15 frontal armor more. You have a couple of different shell loadouts as well, like the E also has less HE and AP shells, but those are enough HE shells to fire for 5 minutes straight still, or 7 minutes even with HE, so not the biggest issue. And the frontal armor is pretty good. 90 frontal armor for 55 points is really amazing. So a really cost-efficient unit for this unit division as well, and still has decent speed. Like 43 is not the fastest tank, obviously, but it's also by far not the slowest out there. Like, it's not a Churchill or anything like that. So the E version, really powerful unit. And the 43 version is decent. I mean, you have them in other decks, and with the DT buff, they can now deal good damage to infantry again, but they are obviously just there. They're fine. If you would have 3 cards of Ease, you would take 3 cards of Ease though. In the support tab, you also get the standard things. You get some flamethrowers, some MGs in form of Maxims. Could also take a 52P, but I'm not the biggest fan of them. And KVD could be maybe worthwhile with the original Carney, but I would say I'd rather take some real fighting units here. And then, yeah, commanders that are pretty decent and some trucks. Now, nothing fancy here, but you don't really need anything here. But really maybe the weakest tab of the division, though still not completely empty. Anti-tank is a solid tab. You miss Sys 2 guns here though, like a powerful, high penetration anti-tank gun would be nice. You at least get a card of SU-85s though, so you have something that can penetrate a bit higher. 1 card of these, and I take them in B phase to help out with the final push there. And then SU-76s in A phase for the higher rate of fire. They mix pretty well with T-34s. T-34s do the tanking, these do the damage. And then some Sys 3s and some M42s some light armor. You also get some PTRSs with 9 availability, so that's great as well for some shenanigans, for allowing you to push, for flanking the enemy, for behind the line sniping action. So a solid anti-tank tab, but really the SIS-2 is missing. So you lack the top end. That's why you don't want to play this balance or anything. You want to stay constantly in the face of your enemy with this deck, because you just can't deal with, if the enemy has too much heavy armor, you will struggle to deal with that. You can deal with it, but not as easily with your anti-tank or tank tab. Those are more against infantry, against anti-tank, and against all the smaller light medium tanks. With all of those you can deal pretty well. AA tab is a classic Soviet loadout. You get the 37mm, you get the M17s, and you get the 85mm. And the 37mm are the best guns here. The M17 sadly didn't got buffed, and they're still pretty useless. Everything below 20mm currently in the AA tab is sadly really lackluster. 85mm could be worthwhile, but I'd rather take the 37mm. Maybe the 85 could be worthwhile, as it also has some AP shells, but only 1750 meter range of those. So I'm not the biggest fan of them, and they also don't have insane penetration power. So I'd rather stay with the AA guns that I feel like are the most cost efficient. And 4 of them also feel enough in a Maverick deck, especially with S2 Regency, makes them pretty efficient. So I go with 2-star Regency on the B-Phase card one. And then Artillery tab. You can do some different loadouts here. I went with some mortars in A to help smoking for my infantry, to help pinning down some anti-tank guns that I then can overrun. And then in the B-Phase some Katyushas to deal with anti-air guns, to deal with enemy tanks that need to be pinned down, or any more anti-tank guns that need to be killed off quickly. I used Katyushas here. Another unit you could use are the SU-76s that you could then use for counter battery and so on, but I'm not the biggest fan of them. Back in the day you used the M30 a lot, but sadly the heat shell now only has 1500 meter, so it's not a great anti-tank gun anymore. Like, this was really your option of dealing with heavier tanks back in the day. Not as reliable anymore though. And as in a direct fire gun, as an artillery piece, it's also not that amazing anymore, as it doesn't have radio in the Soviet divisions, or in the Polish division in this case, with Soviet equipment. So yeah, if it would have radio, the M30 would be fine. Without radio, it doesn't quite feel that amazing. And then you have the air tab, and this is really the biggest, one of the biggest strengths of the division, next to the infantry tab. Like, infantry tab is amazing, and air tab is great. And every tab is cost efficient. Like, this is really the main theme of this deck. Cost efficiency above everything. Any single unit in this deck is cheap. Like, nothing costs you above 150 points, and most of the things are 100 or below. And here you stay with that theme. Like, even your heavy bombers, your 250 kilogram IL-2s that can nuke basically any anti-tank gun, any artillery piece, and even destroy tanks with the bombs alone, only cost 100 points and come with 3-6 availability. So they also have great availability. Yak 1Bs, cheap, relatively fast fighters with good agility. Yes, they have bad resilience. And yes, they're not the most powerful when it comes to firepower, so you don't want to fight head-ons, but you can hunt down bombers and you can win dogfights with these pretty easily, especially as you get 4 of them per card, so you have really good availability with them. The Yak 3 doesn't have good availability, but it is an amazing fighter, really fast, and absolutely amazing agility, so dogfighting with this thing is an absolute charm. And you can help that out with some cheap bombers as well that can deal with small anti-tank guns. Infantry starts pushing. And then, if you have any tank problems, the IL-2 cluster is there for you as well, to deal with any enemy armor that needs to be clustered, that can really punish the enemy if they have big tanks that they want to use. If you can kill off the enemy anti-air, then you can just kill them off with the IL-2 cluster here. And this is really the solution for heavy tanks when they come up. So you're not completely helpless against any heavier armor pieces on the equipment, as the L2 cluster is really one of the better cluster bombers out there. Resilient plane, okay in speed, and the clusters are also pretty powerful, so I can absolutely recommend using them. So yes, let's have a look at the deck again, and really the ground strategy is pushing from the get-go, and keep on pushing, keep on trading. Your infantry can trade with basically any infantry out there, and win if you play them correctly. Your tank tab can support your infantry perfectly. They can push around every corner if you find a weak spot, and that's why you need to push. You need to find the weak spot. You can exploit them with these T-34s pretty well, and if the enemy has any strong points that you need to break through, the bomber tab is there for you to just help out. And then the recon tab, the anti-tank tab, the AA tab, and the artillery tab is just there to supporting all of these three things pretty well. Like the SU-85 can help out with the T-34s together to allow push against maybe something like Shermans or so on, and snipe them from a bit further away. The artillery tab can help dealing with AA that annoys your fight bombers. And then if you pin them down, you can even kill enemy AA with your bombers pretty easily and pretty reliably. So, amazing deck. Really, the big word above this deck should be cost efficiency, and they're back in business. Back in the day, it was really more about the IL-2s that were super insane, and then the Strelky LKM always were great as well, but now it's a lot about the original Kani and the T-34s again, together with some of the shredded Coney and so on. So, great deck, and I would be really surprised if we don't see them in League, at least on the ban list, but if not on the ban list, a lot in action. So I'm looking forward to how people play with them, and if you want to get ready for League, you should have this in your repertoire, or at least know how to play against it. And with that said, I hope to see you all next time. League is starting next week, so a lot of live action will go on Twitch there, and I hope to see you all there. And bye-bye, and have a nice day.